There's something that I always find so beautiful about Jim's work. There's sort of this almost luminescence to the work, like when you walk through the forests or you experience the skies in the Seattle area. There's sort of a character, there's a grounding in that kind of atmosphere, which I think is fantastic. It's beautiful.
To me, the greatest luxury is being close to nature.
Well, and I always say, how could I design anything? How could we design anything that's more beautiful than the natural world? I mean, that's our muse, our touchstone. So in a way, the architecture, the interiors, everything is somewhat subservient to what's happening outside in these incredible landscapes.
I grew up in the Northwest, and I always loved art. I liked to draw, but I also like to make forts in the woods. I always loved to be outside, and I like to try to make indoor spaces feel as though they're outside.
Wow.
So in this direction, we're looking out into nature, and then on this side, we're really looking at the art. And American Place is a good example of the house weaving itself into nature.
This is like paradise, no?
It is paradise.
Like, yeah.
For me, it's one of Jim's best houses because I think it just speaks to this climate, this sort of landscape so clearly.
In Western Washington, the trees are tall, they have canopies and things, and so you're like in the environment in a different way. The landscape, the architecture, the interiors, furnishings, art, all that, to me, it's all one thing. And I think Tom, in Eastern Washington, it's sort of more wide open space and things are clear, and he does these, really strong shapes and forms and objects that are out there on the landscape.
I grew up in a high desert. It's harder, it's more extreme, it's more like raw in a way. I can kind of clearly see that there's a desire for that rawness, or there's a desire for that edge that seems to be comfortable for me to sort of explore. This house is important for me because it was really the first house where I had a client that actually understood the beauty of steel, just the beauty of raw steel, natural steel, and in this case, blackened steel. And so that's what's great about the residential arena, is that you can make these connections with clients that just allow you to go somewhere where you always wanted to go. My dad's an architect, and I grew up around architects and artists. When I left home, I was really more interested in sciences, hard sciences. And although I was interested in it, there was something that was missing in my life, and it was this sort of craziness that this sort of art, this sort of poetry that I grew up with.
My little thing came out of art, and Tom's came out of physics, and he calls it his weirdness. And so I have my weirdness over here, and his is over there. But I think they both are sort of vehicles for a way to get into architecture. And architecture is about life. It isn't about buildings. It's about all kinds of things.
I joined the firm in 1986, and I had been with a small firm up in Alaska. So there was a sort of an overlay there with the big natural landscape of Alaska, of course the climbing, skiing scene, and then doing architecture in this big wild country. The great thing about climbing was there's a leader on the rope, but then there was always somebody backing them up. And you would actually sort of flip, on the route as you went up the mountain. And I always thought that was such a great sort of partnership model in a way, because sometimes you were the lead on the rope, you were the one taking the risk, you were the one that was hanging it out, but you had a partner there, you had somebody belaying you. There's absolute respect and protection and sort of support system that allows each person to sort of lead. And closes to that environment. It's all about understanding the local climate conditions, the local sun conditions, and how do you translate that understanding into a building.
In northwestern Washington state, light is scarce, especially in the winter. And so probably the most important thing we could do is bring in natural light. The light catcher might be the best illustration of using natural light and sunlight.
The Mission Hill Winery is all about not getting light down into the cellar. The tower is actually used as the luminaire so that when people come from the very bright sunlight, that they can have this transition through the stairs, they come into the cellar below.
Wow, what a beautiful spot you have.
I'm really interested in light, but I'm also interested in how glass transmits and reflects. I think glass is a really great material to constantly be tweaking and fussing with.
I don't think I've ever been in a space like this before.
Well,
it's like this prism, right? Of holiness,
exactly.
You know?
Exactly. It isn't really officially open to the public yet. So you're getting a little sneak preview of Chapel of the Future here in Seattle. Here we are right on a busy downtown street corner, yet it's completely open, and so people can sit in here and have a very different kind of feeling of sanctuary.
Yes, yes.
We're both little kids trying to get outside. I mean, that's very interesting.
Yet you're doing beautiful architecture and interiors.
Well, but they're every bit the part of the exterior. In fact, that's the whole idea, is how do you bring that exterior back into the interior and vice versa? The idea here is you basically can open up your studio or your gallery completely to the alley below, so you can bring up materials.
It's like a vault.
But you just kind of vault like.
I think we need to talk about that instinct for you to open things.
I remember growing up with that sort of frustration that these houses couldn't kind of like breathe to the outside. So I had a client and he said, geez, I wish it's such a beautiful project for me because the physics involved, the engineering involved, finally opening the front end of a house to the outside. So your living room becomes basically your deck.
Yeah, you can see that.
Ideas in this office are whatever you want to imagine, you can imagine it and then try to make something happen out of it.
Jim brought up this idea, there's a storefront, we should rent it because this area is going through some tough times in Seattle.
Alan Maskin and Kirsten, our two other partners, got a hold of the idea and took it way beyond what I had imagined.
We're able to provide design to people who have ideas, and we build these ideas together.
Each month, it's something different, and a new group takes it over.
We've created 12 completely different experiments and installations that have been open to the public.
It has no constraints. It allows kind of an open framework for doing interesting things, and we can say yes to things.
The main reason that we're here is to try to do the best design that we possibly can, whatever that means to us. I think there's this earnestness about both of us about what we're doing, like we're really into it. I mean, like we really are into it.
It's not just an architecture firm, it's not just an art firm, it's not any design firm. Design is like an attitude about making our world a better place.
Hey everybody, this is Cindy Allen, Editor-in-Chief of Interior Design. You've just watched our mini documentary we produced a few years back when we were inducting Olson Kundig into the Hall of Fame. And now we have a live, and it's a real treat, Tom Kundig. Hi, Tom.
Oh, hi, Cindy. Real treat to see you digitally, but it's fantastic as always.
Well, listen, the last time I saw you, you were giving me a sneak peek into a new project, and not what everyone else thinks, because it's a book, your fourth book. And we were all excited. We were in New York together, remember?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I had like a big pile of paper with all sorts of disorganized in many ways, but you immediately got it, which was...
Yeah, well, we call them galleys, but I love seeing the behind the scenes and just talking to you about it. It always reminds me of being an editor, right? This is when I see the architect as editor, and I always feel that kind of kinship of you critiquing your own work in a printed version of it.
Ooh, that's pretty interesting. I completely agree with that. I think sometimes the background work is as interesting as the finished project. In fact, sometimes when a project is under construction, that's sometimes the most inspirational moment of a project, because you see this thing that is developing and you don't necessarily have an understanding of how it is being developed, and sometimes it's an unbelievable source of inspiration.
And, you know, there are a few things that we want to share with people. First of all, there was something lovely that was sent to me about you growing up in Spokane, and how the whole mining and lumber and agriculture, how that has framed everything you do, which, by the way, when you hear that, it makes complete sense.
Well, that's pretty interesting, but because there's a conflict there, right? Because mining and the lumber industry and even agricultural industry are actually environmentally pretty aggressive, frankly, and I think I recognized that even as a kid, certainly in the silver mines of northern Idaho. But there was something about the way those things operated and the way they were invented to operate, because our ancestors were so smart about being able to use existing physics and, you know, on all levels, hydrology, gravity, whatever. And I just, as a kid, for whatever reason, found them very interesting to watch, basically.
Yeah, but that's become your life's work, right? It's like you were dreaming another way to use everything and another way to see things, which is so exciting.
Well, yeah, you're right, Cindy, because in fact, to watch those things and to watch actually most things, I mean, even culturally, what we're going through right now, it's all about nature. It's all about how does nature work? And obviously, the way nature works, the nature of nature is really important to how I think about everything I do every day of my life. So it's just a component. And it was an incredible source of inspiration, and remains an incredible source of inspiration. I grew up working for an artist on his sculptures, and honestly, I think sometimes the sculptures were more interesting in the process of happening, in the process of these things sort of emerging, and the way Harold would hammer out shapes and how he would sort of invent how to make things. Completely fascinating as for a kid.
I love that. All right, so let's get to the book. I think you need to first tell us why the name, which is working title.
I don't even know. It was like, well, you know, some people say, well, it's because you're always working, and so you're always thinking about the word work. So it's not work. It has a funny connotation. I actually think it's kind of a fantastic word, because you're making things, you're changing potentially the world for a better way. And working title, honestly, you know, I see it in the movies, you know, of course, when they're sort of trying to figure out, you know, how that title might work. And I just love that term, working title, because it means that things are in transition, things are kind of being reconsidered. And that's the way this book is supposed to come off, is that this is a you know, everybody's always in transition. Right. This is a transition. And working title is frankly implying that things are moving, things are changing.
Yeah, well, it definitely gives you like a sense right away that it's going to be a special and little bit different book, which I do love. Now I know it covers 29 projects, and they're not, you know, they're pretty recent too. It's kind of fantastic. And the range, you know, we always talk to designers about trying to have a broad range, but the range is really, really broad, from residential to commercial, cultural, culinary. It's kind of fantastic. You get it all, right?
For an architect to understand the residential arena, I think informs everything, whether it's a wooden boat shop or whether it's a museum or a culinary institution. It's all about, you know, what's it like to be a human being? What's it like to flow through the space? What's it like to sort of understand proportions? So the residential arena grounds it, and then everything comes from it.
You know what's so interesting that you say that is that many times we see a lot of experimentation in the commercial work, right? Let's say like hospitality, well, all different types of commercial work, but we see that kind of risk being taken. And then a different version of it might come around in residential, but you really experimented, found the right kind of clients that would allow you to experiment almost reverse in the residential world.
The residential arena and even the TI arena allows you to sort of think about that nano level invention, and then and rather quickly you see you see the circle in 1 or 2 years rather than 5 to 10 years. Does that make sense? And
Yeah,
does that,
no, that completely makes sense. And I think it's very, very true and valid, by the way. But the fact that you were able to do it is a testament to your talent and your vision, honestly. Well, okay, so we want to show everybody some of the projects that are in the book. And I love how it's broken up. So designing for human experience, adaptive reuse, and architecture and nature, right? So that, I mean, they couldn't be more relevant. They've always been relevant, but like right now, it just pulls at your heartstrings how relevant they are. I guess we should start with the cover of the book, which is in the chapter, Designing for Human Experience, and that's the Martin's Lane Winery, right?
So Martin's Lane is actually a project for a client that I've been working with for probably now, I don't know, I'd have to do the math, probably 15 or 20 years. I mean, he's been an amazing supporter and hired me for a number of projects that were really deeply meaningful, not only working for him, but also for the group up there and in that landscape. The reason I'm super happy with that cover, Cindy, let's see if this makes sense to you. And I had people push back on me that it was not a residential project. It was not a building that you could see. And I said, that's the point.
That's
exactly. The point is that this winery, wine is all about the ground, the terroir. Yeah. It's all about what's happening in the ground. The idea is that this building sort of like whispers into the background, into the landscape, and it becomes part of the landscape. It's the same angle as the slopes of the vineyards beyond, and even the hills. So it's second glance. It's hopefully it's a second glance cover. It's almost like working title. It almost disappears if you look at it at a certain angle. It kind of flashes a little bit, and then you look at it, it almost disappears. It's the idea with my architecture, at least. I've said it a million times, I'm not going to design anything more beautiful than nature. Everything about nature is the inspiration. So I'm already interpreting that.
You know, first of all, being part of the landscape is what we talk about all the time. You just proved it with that cover. It's a stunning cover, but it's also mysterious, and it makes you want to open the book, which I think is part of,
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
And hopefully when you open the book, you like what's inside. Anyway, it really, I look back on that project, and for me, Cindy, it's a project that fell together. It's almost as if I had sort of worked for all these years, and then all of a sudden there was a functional solution that became a poetic solution, if that makes sense. And it was Anthony that basically hired me to make that moment. So as usual, the clients are the most important part of any of our projects, because in fact, if it wasn't for a client, we wouldn't have that opportunity.
That's beautiful. Okay, so another theme in the human experience is the Burke Museum, and that's right in Seattle. And that's really a special project. And I love there was something about like breaking down the barriers between the public and the back of house. Tell us about it.
Well, that was Julie Stein's agenda, and I, of course, agreed 100% with her agenda, because in fact my background is about looking in the background. Remember we talked about sculptures. I actually like the way sculptures are being made almost more than when they're finished, or a building when it's being constructed. So that's what Julie is really saying about the Burke, is that it's not just about the exhibits out in front. In fact, the exhibits are finding the culmination of a bunch of work. But in fact, maybe for kids, the most inspirational part, especially for kids, the most inspirational part is actually how it's done. How you take these mysteries of nature and you sort of assemble them, or you reassemble them, or you sort of collect them and begin to understand them. That's what a scientist does. So that story is the basis for the Burke, break down that barrier between what is happening behind the screen and how it affects what's happening in front of the screen. So the whole, I call it the Swiss cheese scheme, which is basically a whole bunch of holes to sort of look inside. And the reason it's a Swiss cheese scheme, if this makes sense, is that also collections are about protection, right? These are fragile materials. There's DNA material. Well, it's all DNA. A lot of it is DNA material, but there's also skin, there's fur, there's works on paper, there's, works on bark. There's a whole bunch of really environmentally fragile things that are intended to be collected and studied. So you have to be sort of strategic about how you open into behind the closet, behind the door, the storage door, and then how you close it off also.
Yeah, I also think of you as architects and designers, but also as an editor. We're always trying to make things look beautiful, right? And sometimes behind isn't as pretty, but that's the interesting part, right?
That's exactly right. I like the not pretty part because it's sort of, it means it's moving. It means there's something mysterious. There's something that's changing. When we went to the back of the house before we started on the design, we went to the back of the house. I saw all these like First Nation canoes and bones and stuff like that, just kind of stuck on shelves. And I said, "Oh my God, this is where the magic is."
Yeah, that's it. That's it. All right. So next theme is adaptive reuse, and I love that we're going to over on the East Coast in my hometown, over in New York, and frankly, Long Island City. It's sort of an unlikely project, but I mean, it's called Mr. Steam. But it's so interesting that they had the building since the '60s. It's kind of amazing, right?
Yeah, this whole adaptive reuse situation, I think, and I've been saying that in my last quarter of my career, I'm seeing that as like a super important part of that last quarter. And honestly, Cindy, it's because there's so much stuff out there that is either underused or not used or thrown away because it's not used. And then yet we're building new things next to it. Can't we go back in like a hot rod and kind of gain that, well, maybe patina, but also that history, of the people that built it, the people that designed it, the people that lived in it. I think that's like soul. That's like a soul of a building. And Mr. Steam is a perfect example of that. Maybe most people might say it's not a particularly attractive building, whatever that means, because I don't know what that means.
Right.
In the book, I talk in my distinguished whatever alumni award speech, I talk about a professor that taught me something about assumption of what is ugly and what is not ugly. And it was really a fascinating exercise. I hope people read it because I just really think it was a turning point for me. And from that point on, I understood that nothing was really ugly, that everything had some worth, and that if you go into it like an explorer, like a mountain climber sort of, and you assemble something out of this existing situation, man, you can get some fantastic results that you wouldn't necessarily get in a ground up building.
Right.
And
for the like the columns, for instance, which are glorious. Exactly.
They're fantastic. The other thing is, it's the most sustainable way of doing a building because the embodied energy is already there. No matter how hard you try to make a perfect new building sustainable, it's not the same as making an old building with good systems into a good building, into a sustainable building. So I think it's our future. I think really.
You're like an explorer, Okay, so let's get to our third theme, which is architecture and nature, which is what you talk about all the time. And there are some famous Kundig houses in this chapter, like the Rio house that everyone's seen in Brazil. That's splendid. But the Dragonfly one in Montana, I don't know that everyone knows about this project.
Yeah, it's so it almost fits in, Dragonfly almost fits into the agenda of the cover in a way, is how do you respond, and so does Rio in a way, all the projects do. How do you respond to the local natural context? I grew up in a natural context. I grew up in Spokane, Northern Idaho, well, it's Eastern Washington, Northern Idaho, Southern British Columbia. That landscape is so big that as a kid, you can't help but to be somewhat intimidated is not quite the word, but you sort of recognize that nature is a lot bigger than we are. So how, in sort of a reverence, how do you sort of back away from trying to impose something on nature, but actually sort of blend in with nature? Dragonfly was very much that. If you look at the project, you'll see that the colors, the proportions, the way it floats through the forest, the mixed stand forest of Whitefish, Montana, the way it picks up the horizon line and the lake line, the water line as it floats through that forest, and again, all the sort of columns and colors of the bark.
Yes.
And the shadows in the bark. It's intended to sort of, again, be a whisper into that landscape. And then it also kind of opens and closes. This was a client that very much is active outdoors, like me. I'd rather be outside than inside. That's the way this client also was. So it actually, the house in a sense kind of can undress. It can kind of open up big windows and big doors and kind of just breathe that natural landscape of Western Montana. And then it also can close up because Montana is a true 4-season climate, and there's an ability to then take this, put the clothes back on and kind of cozy up and become a little more intimate. So that's the idea of, it's one of the ideas of Dragonfly, how it opens and is influenced by the nature of its place.
We can't forget the Costa Rica house too, that everyone has seen, that also is like part of the landscape. That is just wow, right?
Yeah, well, and of course that's a different climate, slightly different climate. That's a climate where you're in flip flops and shorts and a t-shirt, and you're hanging out. Things that the breezes are going up and down, the surf's up. You're going down to the beach. Right. So the idea of that place is it is in a semi-tropic, they're a totally comfortable place. Interesting thing about that project is that most of the wood was harvested out of the local forest because it was an invasive species, and that is teak. It was not a particularly high grade teak, but teak in Costa Rica in this area is invasive. So you can take it out of the forest for nothing. Basically, well, it costs something to take it out, but and then assemble a home in it. And so that was a dream project, frankly. Again, because it's almost like you're outside when you're inside.
Right, and also just like you said, like exploring nature in all different settings, right? That's what you're a master of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I love nature, wherever it is. If it's up in Alaska, if it's down in Costa Rica, if it's over in Korea, if it's in Switzerland, it doesn't matter. Austria. I'm doing something up in the mountains of Austria. Doing something. I finished something in Australia and New Zealand. Man, what a honor to be able to engage our globe in a sense, culturally and environmentally. It's been fantastic.
Well, listen, I want to thank you for getting up in the wee hours for this conversation, and I'm sending you a big virtual hug. Congratulations on all your success. Please keep sharing it. We need it. We need leaders like you, and I'm very excited to really dig into every word in the book.
Fantastic. Thanks again, Cindy.
Okay, sending my love. Say hi to Jim too. Say hi to Jim.
Will do.
Okay.
Will do.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Cindy.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Hello, I am Annie Block, Executive Editor at Interior Design Magazine, and I would like to welcome you to Product Tour, during NeoCon Now, 2 weeks of special programming created for and by DesignTV by SANDOW. These virtual tours are where we delve into the companies, products, and trends grabbing the industry. We get to go face-to-face and one-on-one or virtually with the people behind the designs. Today, we're exploring Aspecta, a vinyl flooring company specializing in luxury LVT, plank and towel products, ideal for commercial built environments with heavy footfall, restaurants, hotel, multi-unit residential buildings. Very exciting products with mental. To talk about them and the company overall, I'm joined by two very talented women from Aspecta. First, we have Claudia Kunath, who is the Director of Design Development. And second, we have Kendra Sauer Mahen, Commercial Sales and National Account Manager. Welcome to you both. So this is truly an international meeting of the minds. Claudia, you're coming to us from Germany, yes?
Right, yeah. I live here nearby Cologne, so very much in the center of Germany.
Good, and things are going okay there as far as you know?
Yeah, fine, yeah. Things are getting better. We're quite happy.
Good. Good. And Kendra, you're also from an exotic locale. You're in Wichita, Kansas, yes?
Correct, yes.
Good. And things are okay there as well?
Everything is good, healthy.
Yay. And discussion about Aspecta. So I thought, Kendra, you could kick us off with a little bit of a company overview. I know the company has roots that date way back to 1912, but was officially founded in 2014. So it's sort of old and young at the same time. So tell us more.
Yes. All right. Well, Aspecta was actually launched in 2014 at NeoCon of that same year, developed by the Stone family. And I should probably preface, the Stone family is one of the oldest LVT producers in the world. Wow. Going back to like what you stated to 1912. The reason they developed Aspecta was so we could actually have a truly specifiable product. And it's not just a US product, again, it's a global product. We stock in the USA, Europe, and Asia Pacific.
And you both have been with the company for several years. So I think, Claudia, you've been with the company for, what is it, over 6 years about?
Yeah, actually, when the company was established, the Stone family decided to found operation in Europe. I started together with Marcel, the CEO from Aspecta, from the very beginning. So we kind of grew up the business and the brand from here.
Do we want to jump right into the new products? So I think, Kendra, you were going to introduce Contours.
So Contours is a very unique style. There are actually 4 styles involved. The Chambord, which is a chevron single plank style. The Chantilly, which is a whalebone single plank style. The Versailles, which is a chevron plank grande. And then the Tarascon, which is a basket weave plank grande. They're all an 8mm isocore click system. It's a 22 mil wear layer. They all have our DuraSpect finish, which the DuraSpect finish is it's basically a similar product to ceramic bead, however, it's beefier, and it actually provides protection against the fine scratches and scuffing. It has a 20-year non-prorated commercial warranty and a 10-year prorated labor warranty, which is some of the best in the industry, especially for the 22 mil wear layer. All 4 styles are actually available in 8 colors, so you can mix and match and coordinate them throughout your facility.
Great. Claudia, why don't you tell us a little bit, in developing this line, I think it sounds like it's a great fit for the hospitality sector. I found the patterns to be really, really engaging and create a lot of rhythm. I love the large scale. So what did you see? What was the need in the industry for these patterns? How did you develop it?
we can see that chevron and herringbone are quite classic. Actually, even historical patterns. You can see them coming up from time to time. And I think now, after we had maybe 10 years where we had a lot of simplistic, very straightforward flooring installations with only one single plank in a room, that there is a retro trend coming back. And so people really like to create even commercial areas more individual, more creative, and
more custom looking.
Yeah, and so this fits very well to it. And what we did do is take this trend, this traditional plan, classic trend, and transformed it into a more modern way with very simplistic oak, very modern colors and reduced. And it looks as if it goes very well together.
Yes, I mean, we're certainly seeing the trends for flooring, you know, like a European style, a lot of wood grains, and that ability to sort of look like it's custom, but without you know, the time and the cost for custom. I really love chambord. That's the large scale chevron. I think it's very impactful. And the Tarascon, I think it has that sort of Scandinavian, right? It has that sort of higgy, that buzzword right now, very cozy.
Actually, it's the Tarascon is my favorite one. It looks so classic but so modern at the same time, and it has not been seen so often. Like chevron and herringbone are more, people are more used to see it, and this is something
a little different. Yeah, no, it's really unusual, but really creates a nice rhythm for a room. For anyone who's just joining us, we are doing a product tour during NYCon now, and we are talking with Claudia Kunath and Kendra Sauer Mahen from Aspecta, which is a luxury vinyl flooring company, and we are talking about 2 new products, Contours and Elemental. So I guess that's a good segue to get into Elemental, the next new product we're talking about. So Kendra, do you want to take it away and tell us about Elemental by Aspecta?
Absolutely. So Elemental by Aspecta has 4 options. The first is an 8mm isocore click system. Again, a 22 mil wear layer. It has our DuraSpect finish. It is also available in 16 SKUs. So you have a great selection to choose from for your facility. The second option is a 2.5mm dry back. So it's a glue down option. 22 mil wear layer, has a ceramic bead finish, and there's over 30 SKUs.
Wow.
Now the third and fourth options are kind of unique. So it's available in a 6.5mm isocore or a 2mm dry back. And so they both have a 12 mil wear layer. They both have the DuraSpect finish, and there's 10 SKUs for both the dry back and the isocore. So you can actually use the dry back and the glue down option in the same facility with the same colorways.
Wow, well, I think that's an amazing amount of choice, which I know designers and architects and end users really, it's really great when they have so much choice, and the client, of course, loves that too. So now, and this has existed in Europe already, but it's new to the US market, correct?
That is correct. We just launched it here. And what we're looking at is this is going to be ideal for hospitality, even maybe multifamily retail use. So something where you're going to have more of, you're going to want more of a residential feel, a residential look, but you want the commercial performance.
And Elemental, it still has that high style, high design feel, but it is a little bit more for the conscientious price point. Yes?
You got it. That's correct.
Claudia, why don't you tell us a little bit about the design behind it?
Yeah, we with Elemental, we also want to focus on the target group, on the residential target group. So we have also a thinner product which goes into housing or into more residential areas. So we needed quite broad design selection. And we also, as you mentioned, we launched it first for the European market. So we had to cover a lot of different country styles, individual styles. We have Southern Mediterranean, warmer colors. We have the cooler Scandinavian colors. And so we had to integrate it all. And it's so great to see that it also is received so well in the US. So this shows me that the world is growing together and taste is growing together, which is quite nice and impressive.
Great. And it's exciting to be expanding into the residential market, because I think we think of Aspecta as mostly commercial and hospitality. So that's great to be expanding, especially in this challenging time.
Yeah, I think these areas grow together, like hotel and also the medical sector is growing together, but also people do not live only in hotels, they have that apartment solutions. So I think also these areas are growing together.
Yeah, certainly hospitals and residences are in the forefront right now. Kendra, were you going to talk a little bit about how large hotel chains were really, had Elemental was doing well there?
Absolutely. We are working with a couple of hotel chains, larger markets, and they have standardized the Aspecta Elemental product within several of their properties. And obviously, once we get going back into construction in all of our markets, I think you'll start seeing it in a lot more of their properties.
Great. Yeah, well, it offers so much choice and so much durability that it makes sense.
It does.
Yeah. So again, for anybody who's just joining us, we're speaking today with Aspecta, a luxury vinyl flooring company. So Kendra and Claudia, I know that Aspecta has a strong focus on sustainability and transparency, which is super awesome. I think, taking care of the environment is going to become more and more important after what we're going through with this pandemic. So there's so much that you do. Do you want to, Kendra, tell us a little bit about the company's efforts in those areas?
Absolutely. We actually have a team that works specifically on all of our transparency guidelines, our documents, working across the board within the industry. And we want to be a leader. We are a leader in the transparency area for our product line. We actually have obtained our HPDs, which is a healthcare product declaration. We have our EPD, which is the environmental product declaration. We actually have Declare. We are on the mindful materials. And then our factory just received the Just label. And we are the first factory to receive that, which is exciting because basically what the Just label is a transparency document for your manufacturing and for your mill.
Amazing. And I think those two factories, they're in Asia, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, so that's amazing that there's that sort of transparency going on, much needed.
Yes.
Were you the first flooring company to place a Declare label on all its commercial and residential products?
That is correct.
Yeah, that's great. And then by mid this year, every product, all 6 collections, will have those EPDs.
Correct. All 3 of our flagship Aspecta products, and then all of our Elemental by Aspecta will all have the transparency documents.
That's great. That is such a help. So Claudia, do you want to talk to us a little bit more about, what you're seeing in flooring trends, or, what you're shooting for in the future?
I hope to see much more in the hotel sector, because I think hotels are such a great inspiration as well. As a designer, if you create something fancy like ornamental designs, maybe in the standard projects or in residential areas, people would be a little bit more careful, but in a hotel you have really kind of a playground where you can create really fancy things. I think the more detailed cut design and the ornamental thing will stay with us for a while, because it's such a luxurious thing. It's so attractive and impressive. I think it will be there for a while.
And I imagine that because it's vinyl, these surfaces are highly and easily cleanable.
Yeah, that's for sure a very important argument, and mainly I think in hotel rooms where normally carpets used to be, it's such a great alternative to have that in that area. And actually, yeah, this is a most important part of the hotel, the room.
Yeah, exactly. And even though it's not a soft surface, it's very comfortable underfoot and acoustically sound. Yeah.
Yeah, and people feel safe even in a hotel if they don't need to wear shoes when they step out of the bed, and I
Yeah.
think people enjoy that.
Claudia, tell us a little bit more about the look of the Aspecta products, the authenticity that you go for.
Yeah, because you know it's a reproduction of real material in most of the cases. It's very important to have a very good scan, a very detailed scan, which is most realistic and three-dimensional, but not overemphasized. And then we pick it up in the surface, means we're having an in register emboss on many of our designs, especially on the contours, and that highlights really the details of the product, which in case of contours was a very modern, simplistic design. So what we highlighted was mainly the grain, the pores, the brushed surface effect, and some subtle knots, and this reflects together with a matte and very matte surface, very nice, the wood it was made of.
Yeah, they're beautiful. They're really beautiful. And the contour line, that's a floating floor line, yes?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, great, great. Well, I really think I think the four patterns are really beautiful. Kendra, why don't you tell us a little bit about the cleanability of the Aspecta products?
Absolutely. All of our Aspecta products, the way they're finished, it actually makes it a rather easy product to clean. And with it being vinyl, it's a non-organic product. You will actually, it inhibits the growth of mold and bacteria, which is fabulous for hospitality, healthcare, education. But the great thing is that all you need is a microfiber dust mop to dust mop it daily. And then if you actually want to mop it, you just need a pH neutral cleanser.
Wow.
And we have a pH neutral cleanser called the Prevail Cleaner, and it's super easy to use.
That's great. So you don't even need to use water, which is also sustainable.
Right, correct. And then I know that there's a lot of concern right now with everything going on in the environment. We have, taken a look at the CDC and the EPA guidelines, and there are some recommendations, and we absolutely can have some of our technical team talk to you about that. And obviously, we always recommend with any cleaners, you test it in a very hidden area and just see how it goes. But yes, pH neutral is all you need.
That's really a comfort going forward as hotel projects and restaurant projects come back to life and go back into construction. Why don't you tell us more about the flagship collections too?
Absolutely. Well, we do have 3 product lines in our flagship collection. Okay. The one that we launched in 2014, which is our Aspecta 5. It's a 28 mil wear layer. It's a 3.2 millimeter gauge thick product, which is a pretty beefy product and performs wonderfully. We have the DuraSpect finish on that, so you will have the finish against the fine scuffs and scratching.
Great.
There's over 60 SKUs, and that includes woods and stones.
Wow.
And then it has a 25-year non-prorated commercial warranty with that same 10-year prorated labor warranty.
Yeah.
Then we have our Aspecta 10, and that is a 10 millimeter gauge thick product, a pretty beefy product. We have installed this in several applications, and the great thing is that because it's 100% vinyl, it actually is a waterproof product.
Wow.
So water will not affect the integrity of the product.
That's great. That's so great.
It is. It has our drop lock 100 click system. It has the DuraSpect finish, and there's over 30 SKUs.
Wow.
And it does carry the same warranty as Aspecta 5. So you have a 25-year non-prorated commercial warranty and that same 10-year prorated labor warranty.
Is that longer than other flooring companies?
Absolutely. The average is about a 20-year that you'll see for the higher, even for 40 mils. And so we know that our product performs, and that's why we have given it that 25-year commercial warranty.
That's amazing. That's so helpful to the designers, to the specifiers.
It is. And then we have one last product line in our flagship collection. It's our Aspecta 1, and then we have Aspecta 1 Ornamental. So first, the Aspecta 1 is a 22 mil wear layer, has a 2.5 millimeter gauge thickness, and it has ceramic bead finish. It has a 20-year non-prorated commercial warranty, and then the same 10-year prorated labor warranty. Then we have our Ornamental, which is a complementary product that our design team came up with, and it basically is a sexier version as a coordinate to the Aspecta 1. And you'll see some various patterns and designs that will work with our running line Aspecta 1 products.
Great. It's good to throw in a little sexy sometimes.
It is.
That's great. It's great. And I also wanted to say that it's really amazing that the contour collection is just, you know, you forget that it's vinyl. I mean, the wood it looks so much like wood. So it's really exciting addition to the flooring market. So
it is. We have had several designers and end users comment on the fact that because of our embossing and how our films look, and I give credit to our design team for this, that initially they thought we were launching wood, and we've informed them that it's vinyl, and they are absolutely amazed at how stunning all of our visuals are.
No, they really are beautiful. So congratulations to you both. It's a great debut.
Thank you.
So that was a great discussion about Aspecta's 2 new collections that we are launching. We're not launching them today, but we showed them today. It was Contours, which is a large scale pattern of wood designs, beautiful. And then Elemental, another great collection that offers so much choice. And this is with Aspecta, the luxury vinyl flooring company that specializes in LVT, plank, and tile products. Really great for high traffic commercial interiors, hotels and restaurants and multi-unit residential buildings. And this was product tour during NeoCon Now. And for those of you who are interested and able, we have this continues until June 19th. So please check back in and tune back in if you can. And thank you both, Claudia and Kendra from Aspecta. It was great talking with you, and look forward to future conversations.
Hi, I'm Kate Casey of Peg Woodworking, and welcome to our studio. Today I'm going to give you a tour of my shop, so come on in. This is our shop space. This is mostly where we do the woodworking, and then we have an additional space where we do the weaving because we also do a lot of seats. I started Peg Woodworking in 2014, and it has maintained being an all-female run company. My personal background is in sculpture, so a lot of the pieces have a very sculptural heavy reference and inspiration that will stand on its own as a sculptural object, but also has a function to it. I was particularly drawn to the coopering process. It's an old traditional technique. It's how they used to make old barrels. So essentially it's strips, it's staves that are cut at the right angle, so then when you fold them up and glue them, they're able to make a clean, faceted arc. We have a lot of the tools that we need quite immediately. Make sure that we're always measuring twice, cutting once. This is actually the end for a bench. And we create the rails that go across right here, and then this has a woven seat. Right now I'm clearly in this phase where I love the coopering, but I'm trying to push this methodology as far as we can go and push this technique to a place where we are making things that I haven't seen done before. I know that I'm selling pieces to people that I hope will use them for generations, so I want to be sure that I'm using methodologies and techniques that have been used for years and are tried and true, and I also want to make sure that the designs I make will withstand wear and tear of general use, hopeful decades to come. The woodworking is only half of what we do. A lot of what we create in here is seating, and all of our seats are hand woven in-house. So we're gonna take a trip to the second studio and show you some of our weaving work. Now we're here at my home weaving studio. This is the buddy, or studio assistant, and we're gonna go inside and show you the rest of the weaving studio. This is kind of our quieter, smaller space where we have all of our cord and all of our materials to work from. It's nice to have these dual spaces because we can kind of have the dustier, dirtier side kept to the shop, and then this kind of quieter, more meditative process can happen in this space. Weaving was really important to me early on because aesthetically I really love mid-century modern Danish furniture. I also love shaker furniture, but it had a very limited range as far as the patterning and the color that you can get when you're doing these woven seats. So I started experimenting and looking at other techniques and eventually came to this process, which is a little bit macrame, a little bit crochet. It definitely pulls a lot from traditional weaving techniques, but it allows me to play with more intricate patterning rather than just the traditional like herringbone patterns that you'll find in Danish furniture. If we're doing nothing else, which we never are, it would probably take a solid 3 weeks to complete one of our pieces. I do enjoy these days when we're here and we're weaving and we all get to be together, and it's a nice community when we do have all weaving projects to work on. I think that one of the biggest things that we offer is this unique ability to thoroughly customize a piece, from scale, finish, wood species, patterning, cord color selection. There's just so much that the client gets to make a choice about, that when they finally receive this piece, it is very much a piece that they contributed in designing. On the rare occasion that I get to stand back and look at what we've done and how proud I am of what we've created and how proud I am of the women that I get to work alongside of, it's extraordinarily exciting for me. Thanks everybody for touring our spaces with us. If you want to see any more, please visit our website, pegwoodworking.com. Bye.
The smartphone. How did we ever live without it? And now it has become a powerful tool for all you designers and architects. Interior Design is excited to introduce Launch, a new feature right inside the magazine that's built around the smartphone. Launch allows for the speed and efficiency of a digital platform while providing the inspiration and curation of a magazine. So you may ask, well, how does it work? Just point your phone at a launch code and it will activate a powerful, intuitive user interface. One in which you can instantly select from multiple actions, all at the touch of a button. Do you want to, say, download a spec sheet? How about contact a rep? Or just get a sample? Launch will help you discover the newest products in the market and easily take action. Now, keep your eye out for it. We are loving Launch.
It's interesting how powerful design is. We're lucky as Americans, we have this great example that we can point to, and we just point to Apple Computer. It's like the most valuable company in the history of corporations, and it's a design-driven company. Before, people used to think design was this adjunct thing that you add to something, you know. It's something that you do after the strategy is done. Well, it isn't. Design is the strategy. I'm sort of proud to be an American designer. I was brought up in the Bay Area. I'm very much a California product. The funny thing is my grandfather was a baker and my father was a butcher, so apparently I was supposed to be a candlestick maker, but there was no art or design at all in our background. They were a hardworking, you know, blue-collar family. When I was in college, what I admired were like Massimo Vignelli, his office, and of course the Eames. To me, it was always sort of this eclectic mix of celebrating what is American and also the reserve and that spirit of modernism. And so I went into graphic design. That was my major, was communication design. I come from a point of view that everything communicates, whether it's a space or an object or a chair or, you know, or graphics. And so that's why when I design things, it maybe is a little bit different than someone who's solely an architect or industrial designer. So now zoom way in on it. Cool, looks good. You want to show people that you get it and that you get them. And you know, I've been fortunate. I have a lot of clients who've actually allowed me to break down barriers and do other types of projects and bring my design sensibility to these other disciplines. If I can control, one, the brand, what it looks like, if I can help them develop that, if I can then do what the advertising would be of that brand, and then if I can control the space that that brand is sold in, and then the real trifecta, though we're on 4, would be as if I can design some of the product. When I worked with Esprit, we did the bed and bath division. So we designed all the product, we designed all the showrooms, all the advertising. It's this process where I try to look at who they're selling their products to and who they are as a culture. And I try to make it so that the message is as honest as it can be. One of the clients I've worked with for a long time is Technion. I remember the very first presentation I did. We basically wanted to talk about the future because, you know, that was everybody wants to know what the future is going to be. And so in my conversation with them, I said, you know, no one really knows what the future is. And so we came up with this image, which was a rocket man. So it was a 1950s guy putting on his tie and all this stuff, but he had a rocket pack on his back. And our headline was, what will the day after tomorrow look like? And our whole thing was the day after tomorrow will look a lot like today, but with some slight differences. And it's what launched Technion sort of on this new direction that they've been on.
Wow, this showroom is amazing.
Thank you. This space is typical of my sort of concept I have about retail design, where you're not supposed to be able to see everything at once. So as you come in, you get one layer when you're met. And then into the space, you get into another layer. And then we created this hallway so that it separates the other area in the back where the sort of wall product and other types of furniture are shown. But you look up into the city, which is a great view.
It's stunning.
Another really great client, which I have many of, is Janice Feldman of Janice at Sea. For the Los Angeles showroom, we wanted to have a hedge that we could grow indoors, and she informed me, Michael, you can't do that. And I said, well, it's Hollywood, there must be. And she says, good idea, let me work on this. And now it's a product of hers, and it's an amazing little grid system that actually all nails together these little squares.
There's multicolors and
yeah, and it looked like the real thing.
Yeah.
We moved to the wine country, my beautiful wife and I. We built this about 10 years ago, and it was a small little house that existed here, pretty run down, and so we basically knocked it down and made another 2-bedroom house. It's a little bit bigger.
This is unbelievable.
This is our weekend home, but we're still considered locals by the locals. And so over time, I've actually picked up clients. I was doing work for the Vintners Association, and then I started picking up wineries, And that's a great client to have because you can get drunk while you're working. So this is Scarecrow, and this is the label we actually signed the first bottling. But stylistically, that's pretty much what I do. I try to make them very minimal. Say goodbye, wine. What's been interesting is I've been able to sort of inject my sort of philosophy of design of paring things down, making them elegant, making them beautiful and memorable. And it's worked really well. Typography is the vessel of the written word, right? So nothing can be more important than type, the way it's done.
Is there anything that you think about with the space between, you know, like understanding the space between letters?
I mean, kerning, that's the term for the space in between letters, is a real art. You know, I remember when I was in school, I had an old German professor, and his was like, you have to think of it as though there's sand between each one, and there should be the same amount of sand between each letter, so that even though it forms around the letter forms, it all balances. I was hired to do a retail store on Madison Avenue for the Robert Talbot Company, the men's furnishings.
And this is where the shirts would go. And so.
What was so funny, I assumed that she knew that we did branding and graphic design. And when we were doing the model of the retail store, I was saying to Peter and I said, you know what, on the awning, I'm just gonna kind of fix this up. And as we're finishing the meeting, she says, gee, I really like the way our name looks on the awning. And she says, do you know anybody who could actually do our letterhead and use this on it? And I said, well, actually, I could do that. And so that's how my career has gone in a strange way, right? Furniture, opportunity, take advantage. Interior architecture, opportunity, take advantage. It's not a job, it's a lifestyle. You know? It's like I always tell my students, you know you're a designer when you can't possibly walk down the street without making a value judgment about everything you see. My alma mater is the college where I teach now, California College of the Arts. I'm the Dean of Design. You know, CCA is a great institution because the blurring of what architecture, industrial design, fashion, graphic design, it's like this great soup of sort of disciplines all coming together. Don't be so linear about, I'm a graphic designer and I do graphics. It's like, don't think about it that way. I'm teaching still these almost 40 years because of the students. Students to me are an inspiration. I feel it's important in design to give back. And for me, it's made me a better designer, I think. I mean, the idea in design of being who you are, and you know, that sounds corny, but you need to find the things that are really unique about who you are in companies and people, and that you, without a doubt, can support and defend what that is. And those are the things that you raise up and you look at and you position them in a place where they speak for you.
Hi everybody, it's Cindy, and we are back with none other than Michael Vanderbyl, and we're going to check in with him. And he's in Napa right now. Hi, Michael.
Hey there, Cindy. Good to see you.
So nice to see you too. Boy, we had a good time all those years ago doing that video, huh?
I know. I was a little younger then, I think, but
I was a little younger then too. That's
gray,
okay.
A little grayer. Yeah.
You look
Not you though. You look exactly the same.
No, you look fantastic. So, so first, tell me, how are things out there?
Things are strange like they are everywhere, but being up here in St. Helena, you know, we're already socially distanced anyway because it's all vineyards and whatnot. And we've been up here, Alicia and I have been here since, we closed the office, I think March 10th or something like that. So we've been here for a very long time. I'm actually wearing clothes for you.
At least the top. At least the top.
Well, bottoms are on too. I even shoes. It's crazy, but we're doing well. In my office, we've been actually working remotely, and in fact, the first couple of weeks were sort of strange. I was actually getting a lot more done, which made me worry.
Yeah, that does make you worry. Wait, I have to tell everybody that this great story. You just reminded me of. You know, so I'm editing a magazine, but I'm like very close to working on the layouts and all the art, and Michael too, because he's a brilliant graphic designer. So when we were shooting that documentary, do you remember this, Michael? Do you remember this? Yeah, so we were shooting this documentary. I said, I want to see how you work. And so he sat in the chair and he sat next to one of his designers, and then he scooted over in the chair and sat next to the other. And I was like, that's exactly what I do too.
Riding shotgun, we call it, you know?
Ah, riding shotgun. Yes.
Yeah.
So we're not doing that right now. Everything, you know, the remote thing is really tricky when you're working on that kind of detail.
Yeah, and what I've been doing, which is, you know, thank God for technology. So what will happen is we'll have a discussion, and then what I'll do is I'll do a sketch, the old school way, photograph it on my phone, and then email it to them, and then we sort of talk about the sketch from there, and then they do some revisions, send it back to me, and it's actually worked out quite well. Because what happens when I'm riding shotgun in the office, I've discovered, is that I get distracted too much. Like, we'll be in the middle of getting something done, and then something else will come up.
Oh yeah, that happens all the time. But I always think like somehow managing all those things is productive. But it's like what's tricky on my end is that like the normal back and forth becomes like, instead of it being organic and actually pretty quick, it becomes like a step back and forth and back and forth.
Right.
And that's where people could, you know, normally it's just part of the process, right?
Right. Well, what I find is I end up having to write copious notes on the sketch, right? To make sure they understand what it is.
Right. Yeah.
And they get it 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
It's a really different way of working. I think we're all going to be a lot better at this at communicating when we get back, because we were waiting for so long, you know?
I agree. So you were telling me, about the students, because you were the dean of the School of Design at California College of Arts and Crafts, right?
It used to be, it's the California College of the Arts.
Of the Arts. For how many years? For decades, right?
32 years, something like that. And I stepped away just a couple years ago, but I still am very tight with the faculty, and the class I created, which was the senior thesis graphic design class. You know, they dragged me back to the group crits for midterms, and in fact, I just finished a midterm right as all this started, and I think back to it, and it was like, you know, you have 25 students all sitting in the back, you've got a row of faculty and guests like myself talking, and all you're hearing is coughing and sneezing behind, and then after it was all over, like, that was probably not the smartest thing I've ever done once this sort of pandemic moved on, but everybody was fine. And now what they're doing is that it'll be the first time in this class that I developed that the senior thesis is usually this really huge event. I mean, because it's a public crit. So I always feel sorry for the students, because probably literally about 70 to 100 people show up while you talk about your project, right? And so this will be the first time that they're actually going to do one-on-one with their faculty, and they'll do it on Zoom, and that'll be it. It's so sad because it's so anticlimactic, because it's your final, you know, toll gate you go through to move into the profession.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I feel sorry for the students because they're not going to get all of that great interchange. So.
Right. Well, you've done so much for so many students. It's really amazing. I love that they keep pulling you back and come on, Michael.
Yeah, one more time. But the good thing I like is that when I used to have to try and corral outside professionals to come to the crit, you know, it would last from 9 in the morning till 6 at night, and they'd leave at like 1:30, right? And so now I can do that to them. I can leave. Right. Leave the poor professors to do the rest of the work. But
well, you know, one thing that we see a lot now, and communication in different ways is so important, but graphics and communications and all of this messaging around COVID is really making an impact. And I know you were even telling me about a project that you were going to share.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I have this great developer client in the East Bay, Sunset Development, Bishop Ranch, and they have a very large 84-acre, you know, business park where Chevron and PG&E and a lot of major Toyota, a lot of major corporations are there. And so I get a call from my client, Alex Moran, who's, by the way, I always love telling this story. He's the great-grandson of Thomas Watson of IBM. So this guy's got good design lineage. He's, you know,
it's in his blood, right?
Blood. And so he says, Michael, I have an odd, and this is before all the COVID thing had really started to push, right? He says, you know, I really want to have you design some icons and pictograms to sort of help us alert all of our tenants in this large project how to protect themselves and how to protect others and that sort of thing. So we did a whole little series of, and the ones I'll show were just the ones we had photographed. We did many more. And they were all implemented, but they were all sort of on brand, which I think maybe isn't the most necessary thing to do, but that's how he is about detail. He wants everything to seem as though it's been touched and been thoughtfully presented to his tenants. They take great care of their tenants.
I love that. So what are some of the ones that we'll see? Like, what do they say or
it's the ones everybody else does, like washing your hands and you know, social distancing, which was the odd one because I decided to use a figure, and so I have two people like facing each other with a dotted line down the middle. Like,
that's so cute. Yeah.
One guy with his mouth wide open, right? So anyway, it was a really interesting thing, but it was sort of funny because it really literally was the last thing we did before on that Friday. And then like the following week is when everything started to break loose, and they implemented them and they use them in email blasts and that type of stuff. But
thank goodness. That's wonderful though, I mean, wonderful. It's not wonderful that any of this is going on, but that's sort of like kismet in a way, right?
Well, and it's to me, it shows how thoughtful the client is, you know, instead of just grabbing random weird low, you know, designs from all over.
Right.
He wanted them to make sure that they were authored by them.
Right, exactly.
To show what the design heritage of this client is, they just finished a building designed by Renzo Piano, which is a shopping complex, basically. I think it's his first shopping center ever in America. And it's a gorgeous, beautiful building, anodized aluminum horizontal ribbed building. And I wanted, when I worked with the client on the branding of it, I said, you know, Renzo has designed these great banners that he wants up. But I said, the worst thing you could ever do on this incredibly beautiful building would be to put a bunch of advertising for, you know, restaurants or something that's in there. So I said, you know, I'm from the East Bay. I was born in the East Bay, Oakland. And maybe it's not known, you know, all over the country, but Oakland's like the Chicago to New York. You know, it's like, it's never as good as San Francisco. And, you know, you've done this amazing, beautiful building. And I said, to honor it, we should also honor the East Bay. So we turned the banners into cultural banners. And so they celebrate East Bay artists, designers, innovators, that type of thing. And the first ones were all paintings like Diebenkorn, you know, Joan Brown, all artists who worked in the East Bay, and celebrated them. And it was just, you know, City Center celebrates the artists of the East Bay. And we're going to do that with athletes. We were working on one for athletes for the Olympics, but unfortunately they got canceled. So, but that's the type of client he is. So this building and the images you'll see are just gorgeous. They're just giant paintings, no commercial message, nothing.
Love it.
A photograph of the artist, you know, so you get the context. So you're going shopping to your, you know, Pottery Barn, and there is like an amazing piece of art above your head that is almost 3 stories high. So,
honoring design and the arts, right?
Exactly.
Not being apologetic about it, which is fantastic.
No. Honoring it and being proud of the East Bay, which I think is great. So
I love that. That's so great. Okay, so then, and you have such an eclectic array of clients. The one I always like to tell is one thing Michael definitely likes to do is drink wine. In fact, you've got a small building in the back of your yard.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Yeah, you have like a little wine house or something.
And it's getting a little more empty now that this we've been here for so long drinking.
But you've done some beautiful labels. So tell us about them.
Well, you know, I think it even says in the video that the great thing about a wine client is that you get to drink while you're working. And so, you know, lately we've been working on actually rebranding some of David Feldberg's wines. I don't know, but most people probably do, that David has a really amazing winery up in Niagara on the Lake, which is was the first LEED certified winery in the world, and you know, just a really great place. But David also.
Wait, gotta tell everybody. So David Feldberg, amazing guy, the head of Technion, CEO, or I don't know, what is he? What is
David Feldberg is the owner of Technion.
The owner of Technion, couldn't be nicer guy, and he has a winery.
Exactly, which makes it double win, you know.
Fantastic.
So,
we had the best time together.
Right, and so what's great is that he also has a great sense of humor that a lot of people don't realize until you really get to know him. And in the beginning, we would name the wines. He was doing a very serious wine called Stratus, but there were other, they call it juice. There was juice on the property that they wanted to sell, you know, because David's not going to throw anything away or give it away. He's going to, you know, be a good businessman. And so after our third bottle of wine at dinner one night, at second or third, we decided to call that wine Wild Ass, but we had a little bit of a issue that the Canadian Alcohol Board may not approve a name like that. So I designed the label, and it has a little cartouche of a jackass on it. So it's, you know, kind of goofy looking little jackass, but it's there. And so we just finished a project, and I'll send you images of that too, that he's now doing it a rosé, but they're doing it in cans because, you know, it's sort of the new thing now. To, you know, move away from the very traditional stuff. And I figure if you're called Jackass, you can do whatever you want.
Whatever you want. I have to say, he is such a wonderful, besides have amazing company, but he is such a wonderful guy. And like you said, so funny. But, you know, I had Passover with you all one year, many years ago. And he was thinking about that now and called me up.
Yeah.
Because it was Passover. And he said, oh, he remembered that we just had such a special time. That's what the great guy he is. Okay, what else are you doing? You're doing something else with Technion.
Yeah, we're doing the Montreal showroom for him. We did one quite a few years ago, and now they're moving into another building, and so we're in the design phase, and that's good. Even during the slowdown, you know, the design process, you know, is way before he has to spend any big money. So. It's and then he'll be ready to hit the ground as soon as things open up.
Again, yeah.
And then we're also doing an interesting new branding book that started before all this, and we jokingly call it the Brick because it's going to be about, we're going to go by weight. You know, it's.
I love that. You love to do books that are big, and
books are the best thing.
They're the best.
When people said print is dead, I said, oh, you have no idea. It's just beginning, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Because people value books, you know?
Yes, totally.
So we're doing a new brand book that kind of explains the design ethos of the company and, you know, the collaborations that they've done. And it's gonna include a lot of things that are just everything Technion, basically. So, and that's, I'm very excited because it's not gonna be very big, small, but thick, you know?
Thick, nice and thick.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
And then what else? I think you said you were doing some furniture.
Yeah, I have a longtime client a residential client out of Los Angeles, A. Rudin, the nicest family. I do half my fee is design fee, the other is family counseling. Because they're a great family, but it's the two young sons are coming up, and you know, they're wanting to move the company a direction, and dad's, you know, has great information and history, and so it's a matter of, you know, and I love them to pieces.
I know you do. I know you do.
They literally, in fact, Ralph, the father, says that Spencer I'm his second father, basically. Because anyway, but the two boys are starting a division called Evan Spencer, and it's going to be a younger, more progressive online presence furniture company. And I've done, and they're from Southern California, so they wanted to kind of represent kind of that spirit of West Coast casual, you know, we've heard all those words before, but I think these boys have such a great young spirit about them. And so it's going to be like a, you know, modern, but warm, familiar, but challenging, you know, that kind of thing. And they're really doing a great job. And the irony, though, is that they were just ready to launch in March when we'd just done the showroom. The prototypes of my chair that I just did, the Stinson chair, were complete. It was all set in place, and then the next week it had to be put on hold. But, you know, we're still working on sort of sort of social media, email blasts, that kind of thing, to just sort of get people ready so when it's over that this division can launch. So
yeah, but at least the pieces are ready too, right? They're not stuck
yeah,
in
that's the great thing. All the prototypes
yeah,
and the finished production stuff is ready to go, so people can order it day one once it.
right. Were they going to show at NYCxDESIGN or?
They were going to show at NYCxDESIGN. I'm actually redoing their residential showroom at NYCxDESIGN right now. I think they're probably the only people that are going to be able to construct anything in the building because everything's stopped. But they, their new space is near Janus and other clients on that floor. So they were going to do like a little pop-up there of Evan Spencer brand. So
they could do it with us.
They should.
You got to talk to them about that. We're going to do 2 weeks with them. We're doing like a 2-week program. So there's stuff. There's stuff to get it out there. Lots of different ways.
And the other thing you'll like is we just did the branding program, the whole photo shoot, and we're using all sort of LA, like a guy who shapes surfboards, and a poster artist, John Van Hemmersteld, and all these people in the photograph of the products, and it's been great. They sort of want to celebrate like the LA inspirations to them. So I'll make sure you see those too.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah, I want to see it all. Fantastic, because there are certain friends who are saying, "Oh, we didn't get our photo shoot in yet." So I love when I hear that somebody did.
They got it done. So
yeah,
good.
And so Howard, so as sort of a final thought for the industry, what are you thinking about just in terms of getting beyond this, and also us, being together as a community?
Yeah, I have great faith in human beings, and I think what this has done is it's made us appreciate people who do heralded jobs.
Yeah.
Grocery stores, and people that deliver packages and things like that.
Yes, yeah.
And September 11th, it was really the first responders, and absolutely. But we not only have that, we understand how complicated we are as a culture, and how interwoven we are, and how much we rely on each other. Yes. And I think people will be kinder. They may not shake your hand immediately, but I'm proposing that we take up the Japanese tradition of bowing instead. I think that shows great respect. But
I love that.
I think the design community, I don't believe we ever took anything for granted, but I know we will never take our clients for granted. We'll never take the responsibilities we have for granted, and that we do make a difference, Just doing those little COVID symbols, make you feel like you were doing something, right? I mean,
absolutely.
So I think design will come out stronger. I think we're always pretty tight as a community, but I think we're really going to be tight after this. So, because there are a lot of design firms that are, luckily my firm's small enough, and I'm going to knock on wood here, that we're surviving this okay. Our reserves were okay. But, I feel sorry for, my daughter works for Gensler, and Gensler's a big company. It's a lot of people to kind of keep on the payroll, and they're doing a good job of it, actually. Yeah. So, and they're still working, and that's what I like. I mean, as designers, we're going to find different ways to work. I'm going to work from home a little bit more, I think.
I know. Before there was that little bit of like that work guilt for all of us workaholics.
Having too good of a time, but now I know how to pace myself. So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, Michael, I can't say enough how much I respect you and honor you. So thankful for our friendship for over these years, and how much you give the industry, and how much we need you as a leader.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, you are our main leader. You're the one who bands us all together and keeps us on the right path,
I try. All right, well, I want to...
Loved, my dear. You are deeply loved.
Oh, thank you, Michael. You are too. So wait, let's do a bow first. So we're going to do our respect bow, right? So I love that idea, right? Bow. And then I always do the virtual hug. So this is like my virtual hug. Oh, that's so cute.
Love you, girl.
Okay. Send my love to Alicia.
I will.
Okay.
You take care. Stay safe.
Bye, bye, design friends. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
I owe all my creativity to the fact that I wanted to be special. I was, I think, 10 and I started sewing my own dresses. When you get born in Romania, 1954, communism time, there is not much there to buy. So what do? You start making everything yourself. So I truly believe that is the beginning of no choice. You have to be very creative. My dad was an architect. Super sharp mind, incredible organization skills. My mother was the opposite. Creative, super fun, let's play, fairy dust everywhere. It was very, very hard to leave them behind.
So then when did you come to the States?
So we got out of Romania, we ended up in Rome. We were staying in this pensione next to Termini. I had to clean the room. Because of that, they gave us the room for free. And my experience as a hotelier starts in Rome. 11 Howard, it's chic, super cozy, it's not in your face, and it's timeless. This was a Holiday Inn, and this actually was a luggage room. So once you have a real culture, you better kind of
Step it up.
Step it up. I identify as the client, the owner, the operator, and the designer. We want to be like the new generation of hotels and interact in totally different ways.
Did you always like working on hospitality?
Gruzin was doing jails and hotels.
Take your pick.
There are little rooms with bathrooms.
Right.
I became the hotel girl as opposed to the prison girl, no. When I started working for Ian, it was no competition. Ian brought the whole concept of the first boutique hotel. As I said, we were the only girl in town for a good 15 years. There were some moments of desperation.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Of like, can I cope with the demands? But the satisfaction, at that time, it was like, I can't believe I'm part of it,
right.
You know. Philippe was at the beginning of his career also. He was as wild comes. The big magic from Philippe is how to create public spaces. The Royal Dawn was all about like a runway. Here I am in the city of New York.
Right.
I am on the runway. The Hudson was like, let's imagine a group of nerds that take over this old college and turns it upside down. The Delano was like, it's a Greek fisherman that finds a little diamond, sparkly chandelier in the water. The next big project was with Julian Schnabel.
At the Gramercy?
Yes. It was Ian's vision to get away from designers or architects and work with cinematography and painting. If you think about art mixed up with the spaces, he made us all think in a total different way.
Right.
I always kind of end up doing the big picture. It's kind of mine. And then you play half client, if you want, and half contributing to the actual design.
Anda and Ian came to the office.
Sniffing around.
But Anda in particular, she really wanted to hire us, and she really wanted to convince, he was convincing Ian that we were the real deal.
And I thought, who is this powerful woman, right? Over the years, we got to know her, and I said, yep, she's the one with the real eye.
So in many ways, I end up bridging a lot between development and design, which is a very unique and lucky position. I have that range.
Anda has an ability to cut out all the ideas that sound good but won't work, and allows us all to kind of break the rules a little bit and go for ideas that weren't tried before. We worked with Anda on the renovation of the restaurant at the Brooklyn Museum.
Now, this was an existing restaurant, and it could have been a cafeteria in a school, nothing. The secret is just this idea of like, I'm eating in the storage of the museum, and that makes you incredibly special. They are throwing these crates away, so they
How come they were all painted?
That's the color of the museum. It seems that every museum has a color, actually.
Oh, wow.
She's a very strong woman, and we love to collaborate with strong people. It's more fun.
So 29 years, having a brilliant career, but working for somebody else, and then going off on your own.
Yes, I learned enormously out of working with Ian, and it was such a fabulous ride, fabulous ride. I did not want to look back and have regrets that I didn't try it. Yes, I'm free. One day, just walking down the street, I meet Jay Sugarman. Jay said, how do you feel about being the queen of Asbury Park, New Jersey?
You were like, where's Asbury Park, New Jersey, right?
No idea.
Yeah.
No. Here there are 35 acres on the ocean front with historical buildings still left intact and with an amazing rock and roll music kind of soul. Yeah. Stone Pony, because that's where Bruce comes. Yes, I love doing hotels, but he wants to redo the town, a whole town, without killing the soul.
Now we're here.
This is the first hotel that opened in Asbury Park in more than 50 years.
Amazing.
Come on in.
This is gorgeous.
If I would have a little cabin on the beach.
Right, this is what it would be. Yeah, exactly.
It's very, very simple.
The thing about you though, Anda, is that you really understand the client. Thinking about the little tent for the baby and being comfortable if you're like an extra person sleeping in the room. Because it means you love the people that are going to be inhabiting the space, you know?
It is for them. The hotel was a Salvation Army. It was deserted already. So I removed the second floor on the inside of the building to create a double height space. And then we added this whole greenhouse, half of a greenhouse, which is really the type you buy for tomato growing farming.
Oh, really? It looks amazing. All right, I'm feeling the Asbury something.
It's the essence of this hotel, which is summertime.
What other projects are you working on here?
Mixed-use development and another little hotel.
Wow.
Then that's the old Asbury Lane. So we are redoing them. Everything you see green lawn is where a project
One golf cart away, right?
Yes, exactly.
She's got this quiet power about her. She's a very elegant person.
That's Anda, her coolness. Taste and style counts for a lot.
Yeah.
And she has it in spades.
I'm incredibly grateful, really. It's a fairy tale in many ways. My parents had a lot of confidence in me. I have to admit, they were like, yes, you can do it, girl.
Go on.
Yes, go.
It took a lot of courage to leave Ian. I mean,
It took a huge, it's like leaving Romania. I'm like, you have to look back and say, I gave it a try. I felt like I owe it to myself to do it.
And how does it feel?
It feels fantastic.
Hi, this is Cindy, and we are back live with Anda Andrei. Hi, honey. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. So good to see you, though. So good to see you.
I have to say, it's so good to see you too. And I understand, look, you look so tan. You're in Miami.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had this plan to slowly, over the next 5 years, to spend most of the time in Miami, and to slowly, over the next 5 years, to work less. It happened in 5 days.
Yeah.
My 5-year plan, like, boom. I actually don't work less, but I'm in Miami full time. That's it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, you look really good.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we're doing we're doing a couple of days talking about hospitality. Obviously, it's really been hit hard, like our whole design industry, but hospitality has really been hit hard.
Yes.
And,
Very, very hard.
Yeah. So first of all, how are your clients doing?
Well, it depends. Yeah. Some of them, and those were not even doing hospitality. I was in the midst of doing 2 or 3 large condominium projects here in Miami, actually very, very interesting and very challenging. So even that market, it's under question. Should we do rentals? Should we change the size of the apartment? Do people want large? So everything is a question mark now, and I can see why the rental market might be more attractive right now, or it's less of a commitment than the condominium market. So that's one aspect of it.
Right.
And yeah, so, and of course it's always the communal co-working, the communal tables in the bar, the communal. Okay, so everything that over the years we pushed in, now it's like, maybe they should be private offices, maybe they should be. So it's kind of very interesting how that alone is shifting. So they are questioning, it's almost like no matter what phase a project is, they are questioning the premises for like the program again. Should we do this or that? Now, there is, funny enough, a hospitality project, but that it's in a far distance land, that it's going ahead. I guess they believe that in 2-3 years from now on, by the time they are done, everything else will be back to normal. Now we'll see, because this is really the beginning. So let's see how maybe some of the elements in that project, as we define it, might be a bit different.
Where is that one? Oh, you can't tell me. Okay, never mind. Offline. Okay.
Yeah.
How's Asbury Park doing? How's the whole how are you queen of Asbury Park?
Well, I stopped. I gave my crown a couple of months ago when I finished the last project. I gave the crown back to town. But unfortunately, since we met last time, we opened 3 other places in Asbury. And this summer, we opened the Asbury Ocean Club, which was like a dream resort. So they had to close. So the Asbury Hotel is closed, and the Asbury Ocean Club Hotel is closed. But I have to say, when things are slowly going to open, the fact that you don't need to take a plane to be there, and you can car there, makes it that suddenly this resort close to home on the beach is a quite amazing attraction.
Yeah, certainly is.
Yeah, and the rooms are very large, and the space is very generous, and so it's not in many ways. I find that it will become more significant, not less significant right now in the times we are living, once things are opening up. So in the apartments, because there were a lot of apartments connected to the hotel, meaning service by those apartments, a lot of them are occupied already, and I think the people there are happy because they are out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
And even if they were second homes, I think they became first homes right now, since everybody ran away from the crowds and being on the boardwalk and by the ocean. Probably it's much easier in a less populated place. So
yeah, it's such an unusual, the whole experience. It was so unusual. Now I was lucky enough to go there, which again, it wasn't that far away. It took us a while to to coordinate leaving the city and all this, but once, but it's like in 2 seconds you're there and you're completely transported. And the fact that, and I got to tour all the spaces, which was amazing. And you're so right. It's almost like this town was built in a way preparing for something else. Yeah?
Yes, I mean, nobody envisioned that.
No, not this, but just it took a lot of forward thinking and trust and risk, actually.
It's very ironic that Asbury Park initially was built by this crazy philanthropist in the times when the plague started in New York.
Wow.
And he felt that he needs to do a little place which is all about health and Christian beliefs at that time was very important. But and he started building Asbury Park. It's so amazing. Here we are back to another place. And
unbelievable.
Right, and he had the most evolved sewage system of all times, and the streets were widening towards the beach so the air can get through 3 blocks in. So it is in a way such
karma. I mean, not karma in a bad way. No, just it's like repeating itself, right?
Repeating itself, yes.
Yeah.
In many ways, repeating itself.
And Anda, like the thing about you is that, you've spent your career sort of reimagining what hospitality will be, right? It's been an ongoing career of that.
Yeah.
And then even going off on your own, because as the story goes, and people watch the video, as the story goes, you weren't planning to do this big project. It's just the minute you went out on your own, you got a call it was from Jay Sugarman, right?
Jay Sugarman, right.
Yeah. And so your life is sort of like that. You're leading, you kind of lead in hospitality. You can't help it.
Yeah, it comes after me and it pushes me. Yes, no, it was such a great opportunity to be able to do a town and not just one property. It's so fascinating to try to put all the pieces together, to have high and low and fun and serious and
right.
Introspect and extra, everything is there together. So that was impeccable.
Right.
An amazing experience, and you learn actually so much more out of it than just doing one property.
Right. There was also, we have to say, there's also the bowling alley, and didn't Bruce Springsteen, didn't the boss come for the opening?
Yes, that was, I always called it like it was a perfect end to though it was not an end, but it's an end to the Asbury, because here I am, Romanian girl, refugee in America, okay. 6 years later, no, so many years later, having Bruce Springsteen opening the lanes and he there on the, it was like perfect, as American as it can get.
Right, it's kind of crazy, right? Yeah.
Yes.
And I know that I mean, you've always had like a bead on, like an instinct, a really good instinct. And it's probably years of training too and doing it, but a really good instinct about what's next. And do you think about with all of this going on, what's going to happen to hospitality?
It's you think a lot, because you cannot, there are lots of things that happen to me in this time. First of all, I find it amazing that how I got back in my head, my grandmothers, my mothers-in-laws, my mother, everything was like back in my childhood, because we are doing activities and the way life is organized, the way only we were children with our mothers and we are cooking a lot. Everything is like, it went back, and it went back in a way that actually I appreciate it so much. Like, I love, because it was almost like back with my grandmother in the kitchen for a couple of hours a day was a fantastic feeling. Not at all like, oh my God, I don't want to. So from that point of view, I think it was so much going back to other values that we kind of forget about in our speed of doing things.
Yeah.
So hospitality, definitely that's the hardest one to answer. And I remember over my lifetime in New York, how like at one point apartment buildings were becoming hotels, hotels were becoming then apartment buildings, and apartment buildings became hotels again. So it was a cycle. So this is not a unique moment where suddenly we have too many rooms, we have to make apartments, we don't have enough. But then you have to think like, and in Asbury, for instance, we had a couple of bunk beds. Would people ever want to be back in bunk beds?
Oh yeah, I remember the bunk beds. They were so great too.
They were great. Now we use them as family rooms because the best was for parents to kids to be in one place, so that worked fine. But the whole tendency in the industry was so much of these tiny, 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 tiny rooms. Everything was about small, like, you know, starting with the Japanese capsules where you're going.
Right.
And everything was, you don't need to spend any time in your room. You have to go downstairs and socialize and socialize and socialize. I think people will be shy for a while to socialize, so they are very hungry to socialize. But to rebuild the consumer trust will be a cycle. So it's almost like, I think we have to develop other manners of like this. It used to be that we were not elbow to elbow. Even in planes, we were not like squeezed against each other.
Right.
Maybe it's nice to have a little bit of inches between ourselves. It's almost like the old manners of people, kind of.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that.
It's and something elegant about it, and in something gracious about it. And I don't find it as like, yes, we can adjust to that.
Mm-hmm.
But
I also hear about obviously wellness is going to be like in every project.
It was already. Wellness was in every project, I have to say. I mean, I have not, for years now, every project has a very big component, but the component was like on, the amenities and
luxury, kind of
the
luxury,
outside.
Right.
It was never the back of house, the air conditioning, the systems, yes, absolutely. That will definitely, and the sooner people will say, I changed the system and I made this and this and that, the better they will be. Because
in a way it was always like for the outside, for the fanfare, but you're right. And now now we're hit with a much deeper meaning in every single way, right?
In every single way, right? But this is such, I mean, look, everything, we have to build green, but that was really just to check things on the list. We have to build green. How many glass buildings have been built in this is green? I mean, are you kidding me?
Right.
So everything was just to pretend we are doing it, to check the boxes.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, not everything, let's face it, but I do feel like, we've had a lot of things like lined up in a way, but I kind of joke around that, you know, we talk about health and wellness, but we're more stressed out than ever, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So now we're kind of getting hit in the face and say, no. You got to look at these things and mean it, or do it differently or deeper.
But as I said, it's like, I don't know, like rediscovering things that we stopped doing for a very long time because I do believe automatically changes the way. I don't know if I would want to give up the fact that the quality of life from a certain point of view at home became much better. It's weird, maybe, but I don't know. Food is delicious. Look at all your designers on the Instagram. It's like the food.
Look at Calvin. Calvin, what's he cooking every day?
Really? I want to go there every day. It's like a competition of who's the best cook now.
I know. Although sometimes he's doing takeout, some fancy takeout, but it always looks
I know, but then he
unbelievable.
puts it in a way that he pretends that it's his.
I
No,
know, he does that. But meanwhile, I'm like, we're all gonna roll out of our houses.
Yes, a little bit, yes.
Yeah.
But that's yeah. But even that, I was looking because in Miami they closed all the gyms. In Miami, it's all about bodies. I mean, there is no other. So the sidewalks became gyms everywhere. So you walk, we do our 1 hour walk, we are in a bit deserted streets, masks and all. But then it's like somebody doing sit-ups on one side, somebody doing like jumping jacks. And it's like, so the whole sidewalk is this gym everywhere.
Wow.
And some of them, you see them, they have water bottles filled with sand for weights. So again, like everything, they are all keeping up with their bodies. It's Miami after all.
Right, it's Miami.
No gyms, no equipment, just back to the way it used to be.
Well, it's so true, and you know, you sort of remind me also just of when we were shooting the video about your family and where you came from, and that other kind of life that we are being forced to experience, but you're kind of reliving it again, right?
Yes. Yeah. Lines, empty shelves. Oh, yes. Well, but sorry.
Well, no. So is there like sort of a final like thought you want to share with, let's face it, there'll be a lot of hospitality designers listening in. Do you have something you want to share with them?
Well, I don't know. I used a lot of my time now to look at a lot of projects and pictures and stuff that I never had time before. And I looked this time, not necessarily focusing from a point of, usually you look like, oh, I have this project, let me try to get inspiration for this.
Right.
No, much more. So from that point of view, again, this reset was fantastic professionally. You can use it because you can study, look, and admire and understand stuff that it's been years you didn't have time to look at. So that actually was incredibly, I like that. I like a lot. All the books that you buy and you never open, we all have those. So then I think we learned it's like this even working home alone. This shows how the apartment, everything, it's a certain element that we kind of took for granted or we didn't need to deal with. The background, I saw the books of every designer in the bookcase, but Norman, my desk here, it's oriented that I have the best view, not you, Cindy, have the best view.
Right.
So suddenly, guess what? So there are lots of things like that that have to turn around in order, because our persona now, the pictures, okay, let's say, seeing the interiors of everybody, from journalists to designers, they don't look like in the magazines, those houses that don't, they don't look like those perfect pictures, right? They don't. But that's again a very incredible lesson to kind of understand how people truly live and not how this perfect picture life that we are trying to. So I think, and also being forced to be home, you realize how important your nest has to be. And it's now you don't get it of like how hospitality, I mean, that guest room that has to be the ultimate perfect bubble that you are in. Okay, you get it now by being 2 months into your bubble and trying to get what's right or wrong. So I think a lot good comes out of it.
Yeah.
Including the no necessity to travel. Do you miss the airport? I don't miss an airport. I really don't miss the airport.
Me either. Yes. Well, definitely we're experiencing technology in a new way. We're experiencing each other in a new way. And and thank you for your like human insight to it, because I think we have to tap into that for the future, for sure. And we kind of expect you to lead as long as you want to, Anda.
No, it's my pleasure. It's
Yeah.
my pleasure. But I find actually, I spoke with people I didn't speak in years with. I spend quality time with them much more. It's almost like if you would make a list of who's the most important in your life, it's the time to make it. And it's different than the list you would have made 3 months ago, which was totally professional driven or whatever driven and not like soul driven.
Totally.
So they are amazing lessons.
Yeah.
You
All
know.
right. So learn your lessons. Listen to Anda. And sending you love over to Miami, and big virtual hugs, Anda.